And welcome to Inside the News Reporter Studio. Our special guest on today's show is the one and only news reporter of the 80s and has been remembered. Welcome, Bonnie Jackson!
Thank you for having me, everybody.
Today we'll be looking at the decade that began on January the 1st, 1980 and ended on December 31st, 1989. This was the 9th decade of the 20th century. Yes, I am talking about the 1980s. Bonnie, you have been known for your news reports in this decade. This is a huge honour. Tell us about the fashions and what you have experienced during this time.
I am very glad to. The 1980s brought on various fashions. Both men and women began to wear loose shirts and tight-fitting trousers. Men also grew moustaches due to the influence of television shows like Magnum Plays. Medium hair was common for men, however very long hair became fashionable in the late 1980s due to the influence of heavy metal music. Ugh. After the release of her single Like a Virgin in late 1984, Madonna became a fashion icon for many young women around the world and copied her street urchin look with short skirts worn over leggings, untidy hair, crucifix jewelry and fishnet gloves.
Sounds like the 80s were a very good time. Now I'm recalling that you met some important people during your job. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, I remember in sport in the 1981, the Australian Institute of Sport opened and there I was recording this segment when I ran into Dean Lucan. That's his name. Good kid, good kid.
Welcome to the program. Today the Australian Institute of Sport has finally opened up for Australian Olympians to use. Here's Bonnie on the location to tell us more about it. Bonnie?
Set up in 1981 with the Australian Institute of Sport after the 1976 Montreal Olympic Games, in which Australia failed to win a gold medal and was said to be a severe national embarrassment. Soon after the 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, Australia had 242 competitors, being 196 men and 73 women, taking part in 173 events in 22 sports. Australia were lucky enough to win 7 gold medals, 14 silver and 29 bronze medals. Oh, who is coming out of training? Dean? Dinko! Dean! Brother! Help a cuz out. Hi, Dinko Lucan. I'm from Channel News. Can you tell me about yourself? Well, I can tell you a little bit about myself.
My name is Dinko Lucan, but people call me Dean. I am born on the 26th of May 1960. I was born in Sydney and moved to Port Lincoln, South Australia when I was 5 years old. I am the only Australian gold medal winner for weightlifting. I have won a gold medal for weightlifting 3 times. In Brisbane, 1982, Los Angeles, 1984, and Edinburgh, 1986. I have just made the decision to retire and return to the family fishing business. I recently went to the psychic and she told me that in 2000 a portrait of myself will be hung in the Archibald Prize that will be painted by David Broomby and called the strongest man of the games.
Wow, thank you. Back to the studio. Bonnie?
I remember that quite clearly now. That nice man was very attractive, wasn't he?
That's a bit inappropriate, don't you think?
Yeah.
And you have met a very remarkable person in your career, such as Bob Hawke, if I recall correctly.
Oh yes, in the times of 1983.
This just in, Bob Hawke, the leader of the Labor government, has won the election of 1983. Here today is Bob Hawke being interviewed by our very own Bonnie Jackson. Here's how it goes.
For the second time in 34 years, Labor has been voted into Parliament. But let's just remember, the swing was only 4%. If we consider Australia's economic decline over the previous 3 years, and in particular the rise in unemployment, we should be asking why Labor won. Here we have Mr. Bob Hawke to answer these questions.
I was feared to replace a somewhat discredited Bill Hayden. Bill plans for a giveaway budget of August 1982 were designed for an early election, but arose the Costigan report revealing the bottom of a harbour tax. This scandal changed the influence of the voters and made that election in September emblematic. Mr. Fraser procured an election in either November or December. March or May offered the only remaining slots before the constitutional preconditions for a double dissolution expired. So when the rumors of Labour leadership's bill was around, Mr. Fraser moved fast. But that did not work. So at the lunchtime of the election, I was startled by a headline reading "Hayden resigns, Hawke to succeed."
But Mr. Hawke, nobody thought that you would work so well as Prime Minister. Can you tell me about that?
Ah yes, nobody thought that I would move so smoothly into my new role. I believe I convinced my voters more on my first interview with Richard Carlton on Nationwide. Reviews said that I performed almost flawlessly. My stylish laughing of the Liberal attacks as a Union captive. And I have no arguments with that.
I have no argument with that either, Mr. Hawke. Thank you very much for taking out the time to talk to me today. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. I remember that. He was a very kind kid. A nice, noble man.
Indeed. After that, your next big story was in 1986.
I know I may be old, but I remember this one very well.
Today is a day that has impacted Australia enormously. Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, has been handed back to the Aboriginal tribe. Live at Ayers Rock is Bonnie, our news reporter. Bonnie?
Today on the 26th of October 1985, the federal government has just announced that Little Uluru Australian National Park was returned to the local Aboriginals who were granted a 99-year lease on the park. The Aboriginal inhabitants of Australia, the Angaroo tribe, believe that Central Australian landscape was created at the beginning of time by ancestral beings. A record of Dreamtime can be found in the rocks itself, cliffs and caves. Located at the centre of Australia, the massive rock formulates of Uluru on the most prominent and well-known sacred sites of the Aboriginal people. Rising 346 metres high, with a circumference of 9.4 kilometres and covering an area of 3.33 square kilometres. Uluru is the single largest rock outcropping all of Australia. Back to you, Bonnie.
That was such an emotional story for me to tell. When I was on the trip to Ayers Rock, I was blown away about how realistic the photos look to how amazing it is in real life. I got there and I knew exactly where I was because the photos showed me exactly what I was looking for.
I can imagine. Luckily you did study those pictures. To wrap up today's segment of Inside the Actor's Studio, I bring up a very serious news story that you told in October 1987.
Today is Black Monday, and for those who are watching this smiling and happy, let me dull your mood and explain this to you. On Monday, October 19, 1987, stock markets all around the world crashed. This crash spread in Hong Kong, spread like black smoke to the rest of the world. By the end of October, stock markets in Australia had fallen by 41.8%. Potential causes for this decline include program trading, overvaluation, liquidity, and market psychology. The most popular explanation was selling by program traders. US Congressman Edward J. Markey had been warning about this possibility of a crash, stated that the program trading was the principal cause. In program trading,
Computers perform rapid stock executions based on external inputs, such as the prices of related securities. On this news, the dollar declined and the expectations that the Federal Reserve would tighten the policy increased. Interest rates rose and put further downward on the pressure on equality prices. This is not good. That issue still gets me to today. The amount of letters that was sent in to me that afternoon informing me just how hard they were living, and has stayed with me for my whole life.
I wish we could all go back in time and truly understand what they were going through. Or not. Well, thank you, Miss Jackson. Until next time, bye.